got my first two key poses. 1, 2. I'm going to be doing like a stabbing motion. First thing I like to do is make sure my poses are around 2, 4, 6, 8 frames apart from each other, or 10 frames. It doesn't really matter as long as the middle frame has an equal number of frames on either side. Let's add a tween, Control K. I'm not going to use the graph editor because we're going to keep this really simple. I want to add my breakdown pose somewhere in the middle, but I don't really like the pose that it's giving me. What I like is this one here. I don't want this to change too much. So I'm going to drag it right to the middle, and now I can get rid of these tweens. Let's go in and make this breakdown pose a little more interesting. We can maybe close the eyes, we can drag the arm back, we can even lower the whole body so he dips down a little more. See, we planted the feet and we kind of dropped him down just a little bit, but it really makes a big difference. The tween we have has no ease on it, and we're not going to worry about that right now. What we need to worry about, though, is adding an overshoot to this action. It's such a powerful action, there's no way he would just stop like that. What I used to do when I would do an overshoot is I'd go maybe 6 or 8 frames here. I would keyframe, so these two keyframes are the same. And then I would grab this guy and manually overshoot him, right? I would move the arm, maybe move the arm up, I would move the head, something like this, right? And that works. You kind of see he goes and settles back. What we can try today is something a little bit easier, and it gives us a better result. I'm going to undo that. And instead, we're going to grab frame right before our keyframe and move that one 2, 4, 6, maybe 8 frames. You're going to think, what the hell is going on? So when we tween this, you'll see our character starts to move back to its previous position afterwards. Now this is way too much movement for us. That doesn't look good. But if we grab maybe a frame closer to our final keyframe, it's going to start to look a lot better. We'll drag it out and replace that last overshoot pose. And now you can see the overshoot is a lot more subtle. We didn't have to do that much work at all. It's still a little too much, so I'll make it even less by grabbing one of these frames and dragging it up until I'm happy with the result. I think that's good for now. So without any ease, we have a pretty decent looking animation. Okay, so now let's take this animation over the top. Let's add some ease out and ease in. I want him to ease out of this pose, but instead of using the graph, what we're going to do is just drag some frames like we did before. I'll favor the red frame, so maybe we'll grab this guy and drag it one more frame up. It's moving everything up the timeline, but there's more drawings in between those two poses now. We're adding ease that way. Since this is a very fast motion, I don't think we really need some ease on this pose. We don't need to ease into that. But what I want to do is ease into the settle. So I'm going to grab here and move this over, just like that. When we play, right, everything seems to be settling quite nice. So after looking at it, maybe I will ease in to this pose just a little bit. And let's see how that looks. I don't mind that. Remember, doing it this way, it makes it very easy to play around with the spacing because we can just drag frames over to see how it looks. And if we don't like it, we can undo it. If I want to add a little more ease here, I can just keep dragging these frames until eventually the movement is so slight you won't even know the difference. Let's undo that. What we want to do now is clean up these poses. You'll see, for example, on frame 7, lots of things are breaking in this rig, so we have to go in and manually kind of adjust this pose. We can do it by scrubbing back and forth to make sure we're getting all the details correct, and even using the onion skin if we really need to. You can see we adjusted pose 7. We connected those shoulders, we fixed the arm, and we adjusted the feet. And all the drawing swaps are correct, so when we go to the next frame, nothing is really popping. But watching it back now, I want there to be more time in this wind-up. So what we can do is I'll take this keyframe from here to here, and I'll drop a keyframe with F6 in the middle. So I'm going to select frame 2, make sure I get all these keyframes, and press the plus button on my keyboard. You'll see the timeline jumped forward. Let's go on frame 1 and do the same thing. Now we just extended the timing So it's going to have an even greater ease in at the beginning, right? That looks like a more powerful strike. And we can push this as much as we want. We can just keep doing that same process until we have a result that we're happy with. All of the pieces of the body are moving at the same time, and they're stopping at the same time. Arms come to a stop at this time, the head comes to a stop at that time. Let's try and break up those pieces of the body. I'll go to that layer, and let's see if we delay it by 2. Right, it's looking good, but we can adjust this a little bit more. Last thing we need to worry about is the shirt, the movement of the hair. Something that's called overlapping action. And the reason we do it at the end is because its movement is dependent on where the body's going. So when we move the body forward, the hair is going to drag back and follow as we move around. We'll do it piece by piece. Let's start with the sideburns. He's really coming forward, so as he goes forward, the hair is going to drag behind. This situation, let's drag the hair back even more. Now, as he comes to a stop, the hair isn't just going to stop, it's going to follow through that action. It has so much momentum. So we have to have the hair go forward before it settles back. So let's move this over so it's more in the middle, and we'll add a little extra step at the end. We'll have it overshoot again, and then settle back. And use our keyframe trick to kind of extend the hair so it also settles at a different time than the rest of the body. So if we play, it kind of has that whipping motion. And now we're going to do the same kind of thing, overshoot and settle for the pieces of the hair, the bun, the sleeves, and the underside of the shirt. We adjusted the sleeves, the shirt, and the hair, and you notice they're all settling at different times, and it looks really, really nice. If you take a look at our timeline, right, not everything is finishing at the same time, and that just comes, you play around with it, see what looks right, see what doesn't, just have some fun. And the last thing we can do is turn all of this on 2s. So right now, every frame, we have a different movement. But what we want is just on these keyframes to have movement. So I'm going to select everything. I'm going to press this button here. Every number of frames I want 2, because I'm on 2s. I'll just press OK. Everything is going to be keyframed down the whole rig, and it got rid of a lot of that extra movement. Play it. It really gives it a nice hand-drawn feel. Now we can go in on each frame and make sure all the pieces of the rig are working together and the movement is correct. For example, I'm going to go in on this wrist and zoom in, and as he comes up here, I want to have the sword drag just a little bit and overshoot. So here, I'm going to move it slightly back, and here the sword's going to overshoot up just a little bit, and same thing, it's going to drag just a little bit, very subtle, and there we go. So it has that kind of wave motion at the end. Small, subtle things like this is what we're doing at this stage. 11, we'll see the neck is kind of clipping through. We can just fix that. And there you have it, guys. I will be happy submitting this pose at work, right? It's smooth, there's some overlapping action, we got some nice ease in and ease out, and the transition between the drawing swaps is very, very smooth. Any questions about my process at all, post it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. In this video, we skipped over a little bit of how we actually move the deformers and how we actually move the pieces into place. If you want to see that, we do some live streams on this channel every couple weeks where we go through that in complete detail. So tune in and you'll see the whole unedited process there. And I know I made a video on my animation process before, and those techniques are still good, but I feel I've learned a lot since then, and I wanted to share with you guys what I've learned. These methods have really helped improve my animation, and I really see a difference when I look at a finished piece and compare it to even a few months ago. We're out of time, guys, but thanks for watching, and I'll see everyone in the next video.